welcome. So it's good to be back at GeeCON. I was here 4 years ago. I checked my calendar, and I'm happy that the organizers asked me back, which means either of two things. Either I did a decent job 4 years ago and they wanted me to do something like that again, or I did a horrible job and they all died so that they don't know about that, and they organized something like that again. So I hope it is the first one. I don't like people dying after a session that I do. So this talk is going to be about managing yourself. And it's good to be in the middle. At the end of the second day, I saw the agenda. I was very impressed. Lots of things that I have absolutely no idea about what they are, like demystifying AI chatbots, just adding CU. I'm glad I missed that one. No idea what it is. And what have annotations done to us? They have done nothing to me, I can tell you that. or they have, but I don't know. I don't remember because I don't know what they are. The joy of Scala. I could do a whole talk about the joy of not knowing anything about Scala. I'm not trying to be mean. It's just me showing that I know nothing about all these topics. It's all abracadabra as far as I'm concerned. But there's something important across all these talks, and that is people like me, the speakers, are trying to tell you something. Often they try to convince you of something, persuade you to do something. The next week or somewhere down the line this year, they want you to have some different behaviors usually, and that's an interesting topic. So I want to dive into that, how to get those ideas actually stick in people's minds and get them to do something with it, so that this conference is not a complete waste of your time. I will start with a couple of examples. Some of these, maybe you may have seen these before, because I reuse some examples across different talks that I do. I was having lunch with my CEO a long time ago when I was CIO of a company in my home country, the Netherlands, and I said, we never celebrate anything around here. We're always rushing from one project to the other, always busy. And I said it would be good every now and then to just stand still and appreciate what we have achieved. And he said, okay, what do you suggest? I said, well, something that makes a bit of noise. Like we had a big open office space, a former factory that was redesigned in Rotterdam, where I'm from. And I said, something that makes a bit of noise, like a bell. 2 weeks later, he came with this copper ship's bell. It is an actual bell from a ship. I have no idea where he stole it or which ship has sunk since then. But anyways, it was a real copper ship's bell, and I was like, whoa, awesome. I brought the bell to the office police, the office manager, I mean, of course. And she had the bell placed next to the coffee machine, and from that moment, anyone was allowed to ring the bell for any reason. It could be a new project delivered, it could be a new baby delivered by a person, usually not by the company. We didn't do that. And then it made a huge fucking noise, I can tell you, all across the office, this copper bell. It was hard to ignore. And then 150 people would drop their work, gather around the coffee machine to learn what the whole celebration was about. They quickly learned that if you heard the sound, that would probably be cookies and cake, okay? So run before it's all gone. Better be fast. And then the person who rang the bell explained what there was to celebrate, applause, cookies, everyone gone. It took 10 minutes. Simple practice, right? Funny thing is, the last time that I heard the bell was when the CEO announced to the whole company that I had quit my job, which is true. Anyways, the bell is still there and they're still ringing it. I checked just last year, they still have the bell. I'm proud of that. I introduced an idea and it stuck. Now, that leads to something interesting, an interesting question. When do you ring the bell? Should you ring it for successes, or should you also ring it when things fail? Did you know there are fail conferences around the world, particularly in the US, Silicon Valley? They have fail events where people get together and say, yay, I wasted $10 million. Woohoo, ring the bell. Awesome. bit weird, bit weird. So this is when you should ring the bell. I can explain that with this diagram. We usually apply good practices because they lead to success. Sometimes good practices fail. They do not always work. Like anecdote. I got an email from someone somewhere in Eastern Europe. Don't remember where. Someone wrote to me, Jurgen, we tried the bell, didn't work. How is that possible? How can the bell not work? I mean. Anyway, but the email continued. Well, it worked for a time, the bell, the celebrations, but then one of the software developers rang the bell for celebrating that he had had great sex the night before. Like, oh my God. And then the email continued, and then nobody wanted to ring the bell anymore after that. Nobody had topped that with better sex, apparently, since then. So, okay, a good practice that failed. All right, that's that area. It happens every now and then. There are bad practices that usually lead to failure. I call them mistakes. I prefer to call them mistakes. Sometimes bad practices succeed. You're being an idiot and you get away with it. Some kind of invention because you spilled some liquids like some chemist did, and that turned out to become safety glass. Right? Amazing. That was by mistake. A safety glass was invented. There are many inventions like that. But usually we do experiments to learn things. When you run an experiment, there's a 50-50 chance roughly of succeeding or failing, then learning is optimal according to information theory, etc., etc. So if you celebrate failure, that makes no sense whatsoever, because that would include the failure from you being an idiot is over there. Why would you celebrate that? It makes sense to celebrate success, but the problem is when that's the only thing. If that's the only thing why you ring the bell, then you send people in that direction. They will prefer to just use good practices, but you want some people to be in the middle, to run experiments. So you need to also ring the bell for people who ran experiments. They tried something. That is worth celebrating, even in the cases when they failed. We learned something. That is the important distinction. So I call this a celebration grid. It is a nice visualization of good practices, bad practices, success, failure, and some people use this at the end of retrospectives, at the end of workshops. They get together around a board, put sticky notes on there or whatever, and gather some input on what could we do better next time. It's a very nice improvement suggestion. Again, an idea that I offered in my keynote talks and in my books, and some people ran with it and they implemented it, and that makes me feel happy. It makes me feel good. Another example. I have a remote team, fully distributed team, two actually, different companies, and it is important that people get to know each other a bit better. That they know what kind of people they're working with, also a bit at the personal social level. So I thought, how can I do that with people who work across the world, who rarely see each other? Only, of course, on Zoom and other technologies that we use, but face to face, that doesn't happen that often in the physical world. So I thought, what about mind mapping? Mind mapping is a tool that people use to dive into a topic. Can we apply that to people? Can we apply mind mapping to ourselves as team members to learn something about each other? So that was an experiment, management experiment. I started mind mapping myself. This is me, Jurgen, as you can see. I just filled the page with whatever came to mind. My hobbies and family and purpose and education, etc. And I asked the same thing from my team members. Make a mind map and then fill the page. So this is the mind map of Lisette, our remote office manager, or a zookeeper as she calls herself. And she already adapted the idea because she used pictures. That's so nice. She is a more visual-oriented person. So she used pictures, and then the trick is to ask questions about the personal map. Don't present your map to your team members because that's boring. And then the extroverts go on and on and on and on and on and on. It never stops, basically. And the introverts are done in 5 seconds. You know how it is. So now you level the playing field and you show the map, and then other people ask questions. So, hey Lisette, why did you have pink hair over there? And they said, oh, I was 19 years old and experimenting with hairstyle. And then we had the great discussion about what it meant to be young and experimenting with things. It's a good discussion to have with your team member, I can tell you. So here's another one. This one is from Hanu. He is the web developer on that team. And as you can see, which is obvious, Hanu is from Finland because there's almost nothing on the personal map. My friends in Finland pride themselves on the fact that they use very few words, okay? They have to, because in the Finnish language, the words are 5 times longer than in any other language. So they have to be very economical in how they communicate. My name is Hanu, I'm from Finland. That's Finnish communication. Okay. So the first question was, where in Finland, Hanu? Helsinki. I'm being Finnish here. All right, so Finnish communication is like Finnish design, right? There's no need to fill empty space with crap. Right? I love that. I love that. So here's another one. This one is by Sergey, our software architect, as you can see. I love these personal maps. They're great exercise. Just the way people draw their maps already says something about the kind of people they are. This one is from Dave, someone who attended a workshop, and Terry and Nicole. I love it. Some people get all creative with their maps. That's very nice. Julio, engineering manager, of course. You can see that. So, and again, this was an idea. It was an idea, something I came up with, and I shared it with people, and they ran away with it. That makes me feel good. Another thing that I tried recently on another team was 360 feedback. And I did a bit of research on how to do that in the best way. And the best way is to make it open and transparent. Just sit with each other. This is Zoom, because we're a remote team. We sit with each other virtually and give each other feedback face to face. And what we did was we said to each person, you have to have 2 compliments and 1 suggestion for improvement for each of your other team members. And then one by one, each of us in that call asked first for 1 compliment from all the other team members. That makes you feel good. Ooh, nice, you get a compliment. But then you know what's coming. The improvement suggestions. And there we learned, or at least Thomas, who was our Agile coach, he learned that criticism is easier to receive when you hold up something in your hands, like a puppet or a teddy bear or whatever. So we all had the instruction of find something to hold up when you receive criticism. So that was fun. We all had our Android fluffy bunny bears or whatever. And that made it easier to accept the criticism. And after the round of feedback, we got the other compliment. And it's nice to end on a high note. Very successful practice. As you can see, we did a ROTI, a return on time investment, or a fist of 5, as it is sometimes called. And everyone said that was a 5-star meeting that we had. Again, something that was worth experimenting with. We also tried values. Nice exercise that our Agile coach Thomas came up with. We spent an hour coming up with the values of our team: fairness, passion, and happiness, but nobody remembers them. Nobody remembers them. Practice that did not work. I can really recommend teams talking about their values, but coming up with value lists, it just doesn't seem to work. Nobody can ever remember what those values are. All right, so that's an idea that failed. I'm giving you these examples. I can go on for hours with such examples of cool stuff to do with your teams. But I want to go back to the point where I started, which is many of us have ideas. Those who are standing here and in the other rooms, they have ideas and they want to convince you of something and they want to persuade you to do something. And then many times I get back from people who have been to conferences, to workshops, who've read books. They go back to their offices very enthusiastic and lots of great ideas, and then nothing changes. You know that? You know the problem? Nothing ever changes, right? You see people nodding their heads. Yeah, people don't change. People resist change. People that don't want the ideas when you offer them to your team members. That's a comment that I get frequently. Some people say, no, people resist being changed by you, right? You don't like being changed by other people. That's a subtle difference. And then I think, is that true? Do people resist change? How many of you have resisted this change? Smartphones. Let me see. Raise your hands. Have you resisted smartphones? 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the heroes. They're the last ones on the planet, basically. Hold on. You caved eventually. You gave in. How many of you have never played games before, whether it is Candy Crush or whatever, online, offline? No, you resist. You rather read a book or something. No games, no fun. And 1, 2, maybe 3. All right. Very rare. How many of you have never used streaming audio or video? No Spotify, no Netflix, no iTunes, nothing. Anyone? 1, 2. Okay, so there has been a lot of change, okay, in the last decade or so. So anyone who claims that people resist change is just oh, sorry about that. That has to be incognizant. Sorry, not incompetent. Sorry, so English is a difficult language. So incognizant, that means that people don't understand how change works. How do we convince other people to adopt our ideas? Our ideas are awesome. You should be doing personal maps, and you should be doing 360 meetings with your team, with a puppet in your hands, and then you should do this and that, and lots of other suggestions in technical areas that they know nothing about, and then nothing happens. Whose fault is that? It's not the fault of the people that you're trying to convince, it's our fault. We have to be better at convincing and persuading and getting those ideas across. I find that a fascinating problem. Now everyone wants agility at scale nowadays. Agile is all the rage, and nobody knows how to change. I hear it all the time, but I think it is important that we get better at introducing those changes, because businesses will have to change faster and be flexible all the time. Does anyone remember this?
Je peux me transformer comme je le veux. Regardez, hup, hup, hup. Barbatruc.
Was this shown on TV a few decades ago in Poland? Yes? Yeah? What was his name? Barbapapa, indeed. Very good. I was a fan. Barbapapa could change into any form. Awesome. Sometimes he was a circle, and sometimes he was a square. Whoa! And he could squeeze through the fence of when he was being held captive. Amazing. Here's another example.
Hello, Quark.
Who was that? Odo from Deep Space Nine. What was the species? A changeling, right. Part of the... What was it? The Great Link and the Dominion. Very good. We have an expert in the audience. Yeah, so the Dominion, they were a bit nasty. They dominated all the species in the galaxy, basically. They wanted everyone to look up to them and admire them. Sort of a United States in space, you could say. Sorry. But Odo was a nice one. He was a security agent at the space station, Deep Space Nine, and he could change into any form. Well, that is handy if you're a security agent. Sometimes he was a dog, sometimes he was a chair. He was always after Quark, because Quark was the smuggler on the space station. I'm sure many of you remember this. This was the T-1000, very good. So he was a scary dude, right? At one moment he had a fist of steel and punching someone through the face. Another moment he was dripping from the ceiling behind somebody's back. Ooh, that was scary. Now I give these examples. Here's another one. She is Mystique from. Perfect. She gets paid $20 million for walking around naked. Isn't that amazing? I get nothing. I tried. Nothing. But I was not blue. Next time I'll try blue. See if that gets me to 20 million. Anyway, so all of these are changelings or shapeshifters. I like that metaphor of shapeshifting. That is what businesses need to do as well, because the environment is changing faster and faster so often, all the time. And 1 year something works and the next it doesn't. I was at an event just 2 weeks ago where King Games of Candy Crush explained how in 1 year the Yahoo platform basically collapsed and they had to switch to Facebook because the revenues were decimated and Yahoo was their main source of income, and they had to switch very, very quickly to Facebook. Otherwise they would be dead. Now that's the kind of change that happens nowadays in business. And that means that we have to introduce ideas faster. Whoops, everything is falling apart here. We have to introduce ideas faster in organizations, because sometimes they need to be hard, sometimes soft, sometimes solid, sometimes liquid. It depends. There are some frameworks, maybe some of you have heard of them, Holocracy and the Spotify model, and oh my God, the scaled Agile framework. Looks very scary. It looks a bit like the Terminator in my opinion. And all of these are trying to achieve at least some of that fluidity, but the frameworks themselves look very static to me. I think we can do better. And it all starts with people being more effective at introducing ideas and convincing their team members and their managers that things need to change. That is imperative, that we learn how to be better, because otherwise your organization is not going to change. Why do people change? Why do people change? Here's a nice example. I was in New York 2 years ago in the summer, and this was going on. You remember that? Pokemon, right? Pokemon. The people were talking with complete strangers, showing each other their smartphones, and then, oh dear, a Snorlax has appeared. Run! And then the whole crowd was like a madman. They went through Central Park and Union Square, and I was like, what the fuck is going on here? The world has gone insane. This is absurd. But I remembered, well, I was sitting there on a park bench and seeing all those people with those smartphones hunting monsters, and I was thinking, I'm trying my best with my books and speaking and to convince people to change their behaviors, and it's so hard. And it takes years to just get 300 people to adopt Scrum, and within 3 weeks millions are playing Pokemon Go. It's not fair. How do they do that? I want millions of people to use my books and start drawing personal maps the very next week. So apparently I need to learn something from that. And this is how usually change is introduced in companies, right? Some white guy, usually with a beard or something, has these rules on clay tablets or whatever, and then says, starting next week, everyone will be doing sprints. And thou shalt honor thy product owner and scrum master. Thou shalt not kill thy customer. A very difficult one for me, that rule. So that's how change is usually introduced in companies, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It reminds me of this book. I'm a runner nowadays, amateur runner, but I run 40 kilometers per week on average. That's my target. In 3 runs, sometimes 4, but that's the target, 40. But when I started, I was bad. I was bad at it. I remember very well the first time I ran was in Stockholm, 7 kilometers. Everything hurt, my whole body. I discovered muscles I didn't even know existed. So I had to rest for 1.5 weeks and do a bit of reading and understanding how running works. So what is the proper body posture? How about breathing and placing your feet? So there are all techniques there. So I read a couple of books, but this was one of the books, The Running Formula, and it contained page after page after page after page of instructions. In the third phase, on the second week, on Tuesday, you run 5 kilometers fast, and on Wednesday, you do 15 kilometers slowly. On Thursday, you will rest, and then on Friday, and I was, oh my God, this is horrible. I was flipping through the book, and I completely lost my motivation. I needed a drink when I read that book. It's no surprise to me that the author's name is Jack Daniels, as you can see. Nobody does any running after. They're all drinking. This is a big marketing success for some liquid provider. Anyways, so this is how change is usually offered, right? These frameworks with all the ideas and rules, and you get a 2-day workshop and then a certificate afterwards, and then you do it and you know exactly what to do on which week. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. That is now how change happens, right? I Googled a bit why change programs fail, and these are all the reasons that I mentioned. This is quite impressive, the number of reasons why change programs, traditional change programs, don't work. But Pokemon Go worked, and there were no 2-day workshops for people to learn how to play Pokemon Go. I can tell you that. It worked like magic. Now, in the book Reality is Broken, fantastic title by the way, by Jane McConaughey, she wrote that all the neurological and physiological systems that underlie happiness are fully activated by gameplay. Games make us happy. That's why we play them. That's the whole idea. They are optimized to make us happy. And that's why we play those games. And I'll give you an example. What is it that people do in games? Well, I'm sure some of you recognize this. World of Warcraft. On average, players of World of Warcraft spend 22 hours per week playing this game. And what do they do in World of Warcraft? Well, they go around, explore things, and they experiment, and they find artifacts, etc. And they team up with other people, and then a project starts. And then they start doing that project, a quest, and they fight stuff, and then oops, there goes the Scrum Master. It's like a real project. And they iterate, and they deliver stuff, and they run up to the customer, and then the customer says,
You're too late, old friend. No more.
amazing, amazing.
Just you and me.
But then the customer says,
You to Makara.
I challenge you to Mokra. New project, ta-da, everything starts again. Everything starts all over. So what is it that people do in games? They work. They work. Game developers know better than anyone else how to inspire extreme effort and reward hard work. That is what people do in games. We get to do work, and then we pay those game developers. Isn't it amazing? Please give us more work to do. It was so much fun. I'll pay you for it. Amazing. Amazing. So we can learn from that, and that is called gamification. The concept of gamification is applying ideas from games into real work, real life settings in organizations, etc. So that is not the same as serious games. There's some confusion there. A serious game is like a business simulation, where you play a game with Lego, for example, fantastic Lego serious play, and from that play you learn something that you can then transfer to your real work. That's serious games. Gamification is doing your real work, but in a way that makes it more fun, almost as if you're playing a game. Some examples. This is a gamification trick that is called don't break the chain or extend the streak. It is very simple. You give yourself a calendar, and a box of stickers or whatever, and you put a sticker on the calendar every day you did that thing which you think is important. And you try to make that streak as long as possible. My streak of running 40 kilometers per week is 13 weeks in a row. That's why my longest streak. Then I had a 3-week break and I went on vacation and I just started my new streak. I'm in week 4 and I hope to beat my previous record. I'm gamifying it for myself, competing with myself. That's gamification. And the famous example is from Seinfeld, one of the most famous comedians in the world. He had a calendar. He forced himself to write jokes every day. If he had written good jokes on a day, he basically gave himself a sticker. He ticked it off the list, and he tried to make that streak as long as possible. Very simple practice. There are also people who apply gamification badly. I was in a session a few years ago with someone who said, we have a gamification tool in our stores. It was a mobile, it was a telecom provider. They had stores in my country, actually in the Netherlands. And the employees were motivated, incentivized to give each other feedback through an app. And every time they gave feedback to another person, they got points. So if you gave feedback to him and said, well, I think you could smile a bit more often to customers, ka-ching, you get a point. Ooh. Then maybe he says to you, well, maybe you could be on time tomorrow. Then ka-ching, you get a point. So everyone gives each other points, woohoo, or gets points, I mean, from giving each other feedback. And I was sitting in the audience like you, and I thought, what's the point? Well, what's the point of earning the points, right? So I asked at the end of the session, so why would I participate in this peer-to-peer feedback stuff? And the answer was to end up on the leaderboard, to be the one at the top with the most points. I said, well, why would I want to be at the leaderboard with the most points? I don't care. Well, most people care, was the answer. Okay, well, we're not getting anywhere here. My next question, do the managers participate in the peer-to-peer feedback thing? And he said, no, the managers don't. No. No, the managers just look at the data and the leaderboard. And I was like, I had a Jean-Luc Picard moment at that. God. But that is gamification. It is gamification, but it is a very poor implementation. This is the best model that I found about gamification. It is about Yukai Chu. He's an expert on it. He's from Korea. And he made this model that he called octalysis. And everything that I just told you about is in that corner up there, the accomplishment corner. Yes, that is gamification. Some people are motivated by accomplishment. Like, I am motivated by beating my own previous record. That is in that corner, definitely. But it is only 1/8 of everything that happens in games, such as Pokemon and World of Warcraft and all the others. Many things are there that have nothing to do with points or leaderboards or something like that. I'll give you an example. I was speaking with someone last year. I think it was in Melbourne, Australia, or something, and she said, "Jurgen, we have kudo cards in our company, inspired by a chapter in one of my books that was actually inspired by a company in Poland, Lunar Logic. Anyone from Lunar Logic here in the room? No? All right, no, pity. Anyways, they had this kudo cards idea where people write each other cards as a token of appreciation and give it to each other. Very simple practice. It is a big success in 8 out of 10 companies. In 2 out of 10 companies, it doesn't work. The practice doesn't stick. So she asked, it doesn't work for us, what can we do? Well, I was just reading about the gamification stuff, and I said, you know what? I learned that people are motivated by scarcity, by things of which there is not enough, of things that are rare. Then we want it. That's why gold is so expensive. It is a completely useless metal, but because it is so rare, it is valuable. Scientists, researchers know that if you have 2 cookie jars, one is nearly empty and the other is nearly full, most people want cookies from the nearly empty cookie jar. They test that because those cookies are rare. The same cookies, but we want cookies from that jar. So that one goes faster. Except, of course, the last cookie. That would be impolite if you take that one. Except for the Dutch, like me. We take the last cookie, I can tell you that. It's the best one of all the cookies. But anyways, so what is rare makes us feel special, right? And that is in this area over here, scarcity. So I said to that person, I would make the kudo cards rare. Don't provide people with huge piles of cards, because that means they have no value. You give every person 3 cards, that's it. Those are the only 3 cards they get this week. If they lose them, tough luck. Next week you get your new cards. It's a useless piece of paper, but you make it special. You make the cards valuable by offering just a few. And then you will see the response rate go up, because people appreciate them more, because there aren't that many of those cards. Another example, someone said to me, Jurgen, we have this Friday afternoon thing where we get together. It's just a regular 4 o'clock drink with the company, and everyone says, yes, it's important, a bit of socializing, but nobody ever shows up except for the Agile coaches, because they have nothing to do. Oh, well, that sounds like a problem. So I said, how can you gamify it? How can you do things that make it more fun to show up there? And one thing that we came up was, what about taking a silly selfie with the people who are there? Take a selfie as silly as possible, print it, put it on a coffee machine or in the kitchen, and start building up a wall of the silliest selfies that you can imagine. You will notice, I hope, that at some point people are going to say, I have an even sillier idea for the silly. I don't think your selfies are silly at all. I think they're stupid. I have a great idea for a silly selfie. Well, fine. Then you need to be there, right, to take it. And you will see that some people are never on the selfies. They were starting to notice. Social pressure will build up over time. So they might show up at some point. All of that is in this corner over there. The social influence, brag buttons, social prodding, etc. So I don't think we need more frameworks like Holocracy and Spotify and, oh my God, the skilled agile frameworks, etc. They're full of good ideas, don't get me wrong. They're full of good ideas. It's just the way they are brought to people as change programs on clay tablets, you know, that stuff. That's not working. We have to gamify the hell out of everything to make it more fun. And I don't see safe as something that looks fun to me. That is not going to be used by millions of people in 3 weeks. So we need to learn how to do that better. Examples. This is, I asked on Twitter and Facebook, do you have some examples of gamification? And someone said, Jurgen, for the retrospect sprint meetings, I spin a bottle. I spin a bottle to define which member of the team is going to participate next. Okay, easy one. I'll let you guess. Which part of the diagram is that? Unpredictability, right? Easy one. The whole gambling industry is basically over there, right? Unpredictability. Ooh, do I get a prize this time when I push the button or whatever? Make things unpredictable. We love that. That's how our brains are wired. So we want to know what's next. You can use that. There's a lot of unpredictability in games, and we like that. A bit more complicated, the next one. In a project with 3 teams, we had one sprint board for all with different card themes for every sprint. Racing cars, superheroes, holiday symbols, etc. So themes per sprint. What do you think, which part of the model was touched upon here? Meaning, yeah. That's my guess. Some people say ownership. I would agree with that as well. A team taking ownership of something. We like owning stuff. That's why people want to collect things in games, for example, and build up a whole backpack full of stuff and artifacts that they found. That's ownership. But meaning, the storytelling, narratives, the heroism, I think themes that you assign to sprints, that can fit there quite well. And another example, the last one, that I found particularly funny. Someone said, one of the people I spoke with, he published a blog post actually about this. We have introduced a cake limit. with our teams on our Kanban board. And that means in the very last column we have a limit. It says 40. That is the cake limit at this point. And that means that if we have reached 40 items in the done column, all of that is stuck, this bottleneck, until the product owner buys us cake and congratulates us. Sounds like a great idea. We're not going to remove any stickies from this column until we see cake. So, which part of the model is, can you recognize here? I hear empowerment. Other guesses? Accomplishments? Scarcity? More guesses? There's no right or wrong answers. It can cover multiple things, of course. But what I would think, my guess is indeed accomplishment, because of course we want to feel accomplished when we achieved 40 things in the done column, and someone needs to congratulate us on that accomplishment. But also social influence, I think. The social stuff. Hey, isn't it time for cake? Would be nice. There's purely people hanging out with each other. Sounds like a great idea to me. So, getting back to the starting point is all of us have ideas. All of us trying to influence other people. I have some ideas in my work. There are other speakers here at this event. Most of the ideas were probably quite technical in nature, but we all have ideas. We want you to do things differently. That doesn't happen by just listing the ideas on a large PowerPoint and then ticking them off and implementing them. It's not as easy as that. We have to be more mindful about how we introduce the ideas, gamify the hell out of everything. But then, of course, some people tell me, Jurgen, this is in my organization is very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult. My organization is like a square. It requires all kinds of things from they want me to be a square, basically. They want me to fill out forms and timesheets and to be on time at 9 o'clock in the morning. It's all very bureaucratic, and my organization has these Gantt charts, and project management is all terrible, and the annual performance appraisals that make no sense whatsoever, and checklists. So everything, oh my God, difficult. They want me to be a square. But I would like to be a circle. I would like to be that circle in the organization, but I'm not allowed to. This is this conflict. You cannot be the same thing. I want to do things iteratively, and I want to have burn down charts instead of Gantt charts, and I would like to have 360 meetings, as you showed me in that video. That was awesome. But being a circle is not possible, because I cannot be a square and a circle at the same time. Yeah. Sounds reasonable, right? It's wrong. You can be this. You can be a circle in the square. You can be a circle in the square. You can be a square on the outside, as I have noticed, and a circle on the inside. I've done this many times, and I've seen other people being quite successful at that. And the extra stuff around being a circle, that is the tax you pay for being allowed to work in that company. I'll give you an example. I was at a company in Oslo, Cisco Systems actually. Tandberg formerly was their previous name until they were acquired. And I was speaking with a project manager who totally loved the whole Agile stuff. Agile teams for both software and hardware. And yeah, I was in his war room, as he called it. There were lots of burn charts there, totally Agile. As he said, I love this stuff. But, he said, there was nobody in the room. Don't tell anyone about this, he said. He lifted up one of the burn charts, and there was a Gantt chart underneath. There was a Gantt chart there. And he said to me, I have to make these things. I have to make these things for my stakeholders, for upper management and customers and others. They want Gantt charts from me. They want the milestones. But I don't bother the teams with that. I do that extra stuff. So I shield them from that. They can be Scrum and Kanban and as agile as they want with burn charts, and I do the conversion. It is the tax that I pay, basically, for being allowed to work in this company. And it is a minor inconvenience, but as I have noticed, when the organization sees that you are this really nice looking square, ooh, what a good square you are. You're following the rules. That's so nice. Then you gain credibility. Like I once filled out the performance appraisals form, the annual performance appraisal forms with my team during dinner. I invited them for dinner. I printed all the forms that I was supposed to fill out about them. That was expected. I just printed them, we had them on our tables, and we said, okay, what do we fill out here? And we had one of the best meetings we ever had. Very honest and open and candid, good feedback, because I like 360 feedback that is open and transparent, as I showed you. And then we filled out those forms with each other. I signed everything, and I gave it to HR. HR was happy, because I filled out the forms. That was what I was expected to do. Oh, what a nice square I was. But actually I was a circle inside with my team. I protected them from the nonsense of the performance appraisals. And I noticed by doing this, by being a square to the outside world, I gained credibility. I gained trust. My CEO trusted me so much at some point that when we moved to a different building, he asked me to do the entire design of who should sit where, in which place of the office. I was like, whoa, awesome, that's quite a bit of trust that he has in me. I achieved that by being this nice looking square. And then you can start negotiating the square. Then you say, that square is a bit squarey. It hurts, those points. The point. Can we make them a little less squarey? A little, the edges, can we take them off a bit? So you make them a little less squarey. And yes, I was able to do that. Until 7 years later, I ended up with the circle after all that I wanted, right? But it took a bit of time. You can only do that by gaining trust. So that's why this title is called Manage Yourself. We all have ideas on things that we want to introduce. We want better technical practices, more agile practices. We want people, I don't know, to do personal mapping or have a bell in the office, whatever. You have ideas, you introduce them, but just offering people a change program as a framework with PowerPoints and a 2-day class with a certificate, that is not going to change the organization. We have to learn how to better introduce those ideas. So think about the ideas that you have come up with, that you have learned about today. Write them down, but before you just offer them to everyone, think about how you can gamify everything, how you can be the square inside or outside of the circle, because the organization otherwise might resist. If you want to learn more about all this crap, then I can suggest that you read one of those books. And my new one that I just started working on is called Startup, Scale Up, Screw Up. If you work for a startup, or if you work at a company that is trying to scale up, or you think your company is a total screw up, either of the three, this is going to be the book for you. I look forward to hearing stories, so that's why I tell this. I look forward to stories. I'm going to visit the company in Krakow tomorrow morning. I look forward to that, to get some stories. If you have stories, feel free to email me, sign up here. And thank you so much. I hope you had a very good day and even better day, hopefully, tomorrow at the conference. Thanks for listening.